all the Pokemon that got unique held items in Gen 2, Thick Club Marowak has to be the single most iconic in this generation. Obviously, it was infamous for having the highest effective attack stat in the entire game when you were playing competitively, and people would do things like set up Swords Dance with it, of course being very careful not to overflow their attack stat over 1024. But by using Swords Dance with the Thick Club, it basically made Marowak a Gen 2 sweeper. That was all competitive. How would Cubone and Marowak with the Thick Club perform in a full game solo challenge in Pokemon Crystal? That's what we're here to find out today. I'm going to start off with a Cubone in this one. Now we are going to run Thick Club Cubone with the extra egg move Swords Dance as well, because how could we be running a Thick Club Cubone Marowak without Swords Dance? That would make no sense in Gen 2, but let's just see how this actually goes. Are we going to be able to beat the game on effectively minimum battles or minimum experience at least? Or are we going to find that the ground typing is still too weak against a lot of opponents, even when you have the most overpowered attack stat in the game? Let's get into it and find out. So as we make our way into Professor Elm's lab, he's going to give us what is arguably the strongest Cubone that has ever existed, because we've already got Swords Dance and the Thick Club on this one. We're going to pick the middle Pokeball so that we're up against the Bayleaf team for this entire run, since we know Bayleaf will be an absolutely huge challenge for this Pokemon. Still, if we can get access to decent moves like Headbutt, I think we'll be fine. We'll just have to see. However, speaking of moves, we actually have a pretty big problem right off the bat with this one, which is the fact that Cubone starts with no damage dealing moves. That means that true minimum battles, like not going to fight anything other than what's required, is impossible with this Pokemon. There's no way that we're going to be able to use up all the PP and Growl, Tail Whip, and Swords Dance against any opponent that can actually deal damage. However, I am interested to see if we can get through with minimum experience, effectively using the fact that we could just deplete our PP against a wild Pokemon and then go into struggle. And if we just avoid knocking out any random wild Pokemon and instead just use struggle in these early battles in order to gain some XP, we might find a situation where we actually can get through our opponents. So I'm going to sit here and grind for a minute in order to find some Pokemon that can't actually attack me. And now it's just a matter of using up all of our PP. So I have used up all of the PP in my moves, with the exception of having one PP left in Swords Dance. I'm going to set up that Swords Dance and then try to knock out the rival with struggle. Let's just see how this goes. So first up, of course, I'm going Swords Dance turn 1 as we get tackled. And now we can struggle. We did well over half to the Chikorita and we knock it out the next turn. So clearly we're doing a lot of damage with this struggle powered up by the Thick Club and Swords Dance. The issue is that we're going to have to deplete all of our PP again before we can fight against Falkner, because none of his Pokemon can be affected by even Bone Club, which we're going to learn in a little bit. So yeah, this could be terrible. So we're going to name our rival an abbreviation of Game Freak for the fact that they clearly hate our Cubone for some reason, but that's perfectly fine. We're going to just stunt on the game now because of the disrespect they gave to this Pokemon. And after a massive grind to use up all our PP, we can come into our first fight against youngster Mikey with one Swords Dance remaining. Then we'll go into struggle. We one-shot the Pidgey. Here, the Rattata also gets one hit KO'd, so we get an easy victory. Now, I don't know if we're actually going to need Swords Dance inside of Falkner's gym or not. So what I'm going to do is just purchase a bunch of potions I already have, and I'm going to go straight into the gym first and just see if I can manage the victory or not. If it proves to be difficult, we'll come back out and deplete all of our PP except one in Swords Dance for each of the battles, so that then hopefully we can find a way through. This one could be a little tough, but at least we have decent defense, so maybe it works. Let's get into the Honest Abe fight and find out. So first up, against Honest Abe, we cannot use a berry because we are only allowed to hold the Thick Club. And we can see that our first struggle did 8 damage. So this would be a 4-hit KO at this current range, and Peck simply does too much damage and knocks us out. So I think we're going to need a Swords Dance or two here. So let's get out and start the grind so that we can get rid of all of our PP other than one in Swords Dance and see if that allows us to win. And after a fair bit of grinding here against wild Hoppips, we are able to use up all of our PP, and it's time to go back into the gym and see if we can actually get through. This is obviously not going to be a fast run by any means because of the fact that we're having to manipulate our PP so early in the run, but you know, PP problems, they're pretty standard in Pokemon runs. So here now against Honest Abe, I'm going to set up Swords Dance the first turn. Now Struggle does well over half, and we get a situation where we knock ourselves out at the same time that we knock out the Spearow. So that still technically didn't work. Maybe we can get a better range though. Maybe we just need a critical hit at some point. I will reset for one crit here. Instead, he's getting critical hits on me, so this might take a while. Here, finally, we do get the crit and we one-shot against the Spearow, allowing us to now move on in the gym as well as leveling up to level 7. So we should be a little more survivable now. Let's see if we can just beat Rod without even needing to go out and get Swords Dance. I'm not sure, but let's just check this out and see. And here we're doing just a little less than half to these Pidgeys. So yet again, we probably need to get a crit in here somewhere if we're going to survive. Against Pidgey, it is also possible to get a miss from Tackle, which could give us the chance that we need. So this time we're going into the second Pidgey still on green health, and that might be enough. Sure enough, it is. We do manage to beat Rod. But now I think there's no way we're going to make it through Falkner himself without the Swords Dance, so I'm going to have to go out and grind some PP again. So once again, we grind away until we only have one PP left in Swords Dance. It's time to go try Falkner himself. This could turn out to be an absolute nightmare, but I don't think we're going to level up in the middle of the fight to get Bone Club, which is actually a godsend, because if we got access to Bone Club in the middle of this fight, that would mean that minimum experience was impossible here. But let's see if we can get this to go between Swords Dance and the Thick Club with our struggle strats. So Falkner attempt number 1, I set up Swords Dance first, then Struggle one-shots the Pidgey. Out comes Pidgeotto. Of course it's faster, we do over half, but we have a situation again where we knock ourselves out at the same time we knock out Pidgeotto, so I think a crit is gonna come into play again in this one. The whole issue, of course, is that Gust is 100% accurate, and it's the only move he's gonna use since he knows that it does the most damage. I don't know that the Pidgey range actually matters as long as we get the crit here though. Of course, we could get a couple of misses from the Pidgey in order to allow ourselves to get to Pidgeotto on full health, but honestly, that might be hoping for a little bit too much in this one. Now, it is worth noting that we are in a speed tie with the Pidgey, so sometimes we outspeed, sometimes we don't, and if we do outspeed 2 turns in a row, we could get a situation where we only need one tackle miss to be able to make it to the Pidgeotto on full health, and then it might just be a matter of getting the crit. So I think this one is possible, I just don't think it's very likely. It is also worth noting I am running a max DV's Cubone here. This is the strongest possible Cubone, and it still appears to actually be a range to one-hit KO the Pidgey after a Swords Dance. So the other strategy is to try to come in here with 2 Swords Dances and see if that helps us get a better range on the Pidgeotto. I don't think it will. I think we're still going to end up needing 2 hits there. So in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here with 3 PP in Swords Dance. I'm going to set up all 3 on the first Pidgey. Let's see if we can get this to go. Now, we can at that point one-shot the Pidgeotto. The problem is, of course, that we don't have enough HP left unless we get some sort of really good miss luck here from the first Pidgey, but at least it does have a 5% chance to miss with its moves, so that's probably the best that we can hope for. But here we find that even when we get a miss from the Pidgey, we just don't have enough HP left to knock out Pidgeotto, so I think we have to go back to the 1 Swords Dance and hope for the crit strat. That's going to be the fastest way to get through this. However, I will test 2 Swords Dances just to see if it is enough here, because if so, we will go with that, but I just don't have much confidence. And sure enough, with 2 Swords Dances, the Pidgeotto is still holding on with 3 HP remaining, so that's not going to be enough to get through this. And here it took a massive number of attempts, but we finally managed to get through Falkner without getting any optional battles. The overlay incorrectly says we took 1 optional battle. It's just because I was holding down my auto fire button for too long. We are still on on minimum experience here. In spite of the fact that we have gone out and fought up against a bunch of hop-ips in order to use up all of our PP, we are technically now able to move on in the game, and we actually finally have a damage dealing move in Bone Club. However, that's not maybe as good as it seems, because we're going to have a bunch of Zubats in the next section that we have to knock out, and we're not going to be able to use this move against them. So we're probably back to just feeling terrible in this entire section. Now, the other thing that we can do is learn a same type move in Mud Slap right now, which I'm going to just slap on over, I think, Tail Whip, because we've got Swords Dance. We're already boosting our attack stat. I don't think we need to double dip with the Tail Whip as well. And we're just going to have to see if we can find a way through this next section where we really need to get to level 13 and learn Headbutt. I could have given it as a TM at the beginning of this run, but I wanted the true authentic experience of playing with a Swords Dance Bone Club Cubone, and I think I got what I paid. Still, we are able to use up all of our PP pretty easily, so we can make our way back in here to the Slowpoke Well and try our hand against the rest of these rockets. And fortunately, since we're at a significantly higher level than our opponents now, we seem to be doing more than enough damage with our struggle, and we're not taking that much damage back. So we should be able to get through all of these, I think, without even needing to go Swords Dance strats. As long as we don't get bad confusion luck, we should be good to go. But of course, after beating Jamesy Proton, we are going to be in a situation where we get an auto heal from Kurt. So hopefully we can get through with our ground type moves. Otherwise, we're going to be in another bad situation here. We still have to gain one more level in order to get access to Headbutt. The big issue, of course, is that we can't really go into Bugsy's gym since the first trader has a Leddyba, and we have no way to knock that Pokemon out unless we want to go grind away our PP again. So I'm going to try the rival first. Let's see how this goes. So strategy against the rival, I'm going to start by setting up some Swords Dances on the Ghastly. Now this one we get put to sleep and licked a bunch of times, so we're probably going to lose. He sends out the Bayleaf second. We don't quite get to Headbutt anyway, and we simply get destroyed by a Razor Leaf. Next attempt, we don't get licked nearly as many times after using one Mud Slap on that Ghastly, so we do get to Bayleaf still on green health, but it might just be that it just one-shots us with Razor Leaf from this HP. Sure enough, it does, so we go down. So with that, I think we have to go and grind our PP again, because we're going to have to be able to get through the randos inside of Bugsy's gym before we're going to be able to beat the rival. Now, fortunately, after getting the struggle and beating the randos in the gym, we do get to level 13. We can learn Headbutt, so now we have a move that can legitimately hit flying types. I'm just going to go ahead and learn it over Growl, and now I can actually go and heal up and go into the Bugsy battle with full HP. Let's just see how this fight actually goes with our Swords Dance strategy. So first up on the Metapod, I'm going to set up 3 Swords Dances right here so that we do as much damage as possible, and then Headbutt just destroys that Pokemon. Kakuna also gets destroyed. We get to level 14, the Scyther comes out. It hits a Fury Cutter, but then it gets one hit KO'd by the Headbutt, and we easily win against Bugsy. But of course, Bugsy is not the final boss of this section of the game. Oh no, no, no. That is, of course, the rival. Rival number 2 actually could be a wall here. We might be at the point where we cannot progress, no matter what we do on effectively minimum battles, short of him getting a Razor Leaf miss. So we're just gonna have to see. Let's get into it and find out. So my strategy here is going to be to lead off with a Mud Slap on the Ghastly. I wanted to see if I could lower its accuracy. Unfortunately, that was strong enough to just one-shot that Pokemon. And then here we are slower than the Bayleaf. It hits Razor Leaf, and at least a critical hit is enough to one-shot us from that level of HP. Let's test this out just a little bit more though. So here I set up a couple of Swords Dances first, so I have a higher attack stat, and then I knocked out the Ghastly. Now let's just see what it looks like on the Bayleaf. It uses Reflect, and Headbutt does about half. A critical hit Razor Leaf knocks us out, but the fact that he used Reflect there means a non-crit would not have one-hit KO'd us, so we should actually have a chance of getting through this. This time we get to Bayleaf on really good health. It goes Reflect, but we've set up 3 Swords Dances here. We survive the Razor Leaf and knock it out the next turn. We get to level 16 as Zubat comes out, and a single Headbutt does the job. So it turns out that Game Freak cannot stop our Cubone from progressing without optional battles. Once again, it shows one optional battle there, but that's not legit. That was just because I was holding an auto A button plus a speed up while I was fighting against Falkner over and over again, and I accidentally went past the menu screen, which causes my overlay to count that as an optional battle. We are still actually running on minimum experience, but we can see we're up to 72 resets at this point. I've always mentioned on this channel, I will reset for one critical hit in a battle. That is it. When I'm trying to stay at least on minimum battles or close to minimum battles, I felt that it was reasonable in that spot. You're welcome to disagree with me in the comments below. But now that we've gotten through those two sections, I actually think that the rest of this run is going to start to open up and be a lot easier, especially because eventually we're going to evolve into a Marowak here so that we can truly have the thick club experience, but also because now that we've hit this section of the game, Goldenrod technically gives us some options like elemental punches, and at least the next two gyms are not going to be in a situation where they're going to be good against our moves. But here, without further ado, I think we just go straight into Whitney's gym. Like, I could go for dig strats here in order to break up rollout. I just don't think I'm gonna need to. I think I just set up Swords Dance on Clefairy and then just sweep through the team, but let's find out. So Whitney attempt number 1, I'm going to set up a Swords Dance here on the first Clefairy. We took a lot of damage there, wow. Now Bone Club is enough to one-shot there against the Clefairy though. Miltank comes out next. We're just gonna give it a Mud Slap and then go into Bone Club here, and Bone Club appears to be a 2-hit KO. Even after she milk drinks, she just gets destroyed. Thick Club Swords Dance Cubone is kind of OP, and just like that, we are ready to move on to the Morty section. So I think our troubles are behind us, at least for a little while, until we get to Chuck and Pryce. I think Jasmine's going to be a cakewalk in this one, but Chuck's Poliwrath could be an issue, and Pryce might actually prove to be kind of decent in this one. I'm honestly not sure. He might still just be trash, but you know, we're just gonna have to test this out and see. And after quickly dispatching all of the Kimono girls, we can make our way to the rival number 3 fight, where we're definitely gonna be slower. We're not gonna be able to do anything to outspeed against this Haunter unless we start taking massive numbers of optional battles. I don't think it's worth it, but we might not need to outspeed here. We might just need to set up a Swords Dance and then just go into sweeping the entire team. Let's see if it actually works. So first up, I'm going Swords Dance against this Haunter, and then we're going to go into the Bone Club. We knock it out the next turn. Out comes the Bayleaf next. It goes Poison Powder, and Headbutt is not quite a one-hitter. Razor Leaf knocks us out the next turn. So we might need to go for 2 Swords Dances here. I'm honestly not sure if it's going to work out or not. Lick, unfortunately, is doing a lot of damage here, so fight just doesn't seem to be working. So let's make our way down to the power plant. There are a couple of required trainers down there. With a medium fast level up Pokemon, we can get to level 23 here, and those extra levels could make all the difference in this one. Plus, we can get strength if we really want a stronger normal type move, though obviously at some point we're going to be going return in this one, I think, in order to take maximum advantage of our higher attack stat. But for now, I'll avoid any of that and just try to get through with my moveset as it is. But after going to the lighthouse, let's just see how the range looks now on this Pokemon. We're going to still set up the Swords Dance on the first Haunter. We get paralyzed turn 1 and we're fully paralyzed. I think that's just bad luck, so I'm going to reset there. We like the Lick turn 1 and then Curse turn 2 here, however, because that really does improve our odds of getting through. But then Bayleaf goes for Reflect and Growl, the 2 worst moves it could have used against us. If it just goes Poison Powder, I think we actually win here. But in fact, with 1 Swords Dance, we just missed the range to knock out the Bayleaf. I'm going to see if 2 Swords Dances are possible here. Otherwise, we're still in a critical hit sort of situation. It is possible that there's a better range there on that one though, so I will just test this a few times. This time, however, we get through the Haunter with no curse. It used Lick twice, and that might actually give us a chance here against the Bayleaf. Of course, it has to go Reflect against me though, so I lose because of the fact that it uses Reflect. It could have gone for Growl, it could have gone for Poison Powder. Either of those moves would have been better than Reflect, so we lose because of that, in spite of our incredible luck getting there with no curse. This time we finally get a Razor Leaf miss, however, and Poison Powder, so we do get through to the Zubat. We go Headbutt, that's a 1-hit KO. On the Magnemite, I think even Mud Slap will will do the job here. Sure enough, it does. So we finally win that fight, but we've already gone up to 96 resets in this run, which is insane. Of course, if we just went and grinded optional battles, we'd be fine. The only case I don't think we really wanted to take optional battles was before Falkner, because we didn't want to get the extra PP in Bone Club. But at this point, honestly, the better strategy with this whole thing would just be to breed your Cubone with the move Headbutt, and you'd be fine from the early game, and you could just grind a few extra battles in order to make these rivals more consistent. But now that we have gotten through the Rival 3 fight, I think we're good to go for Morty's Gym with our stab ground type moves. Let's see if we get through nice and easy here. So now against Morty, we're just going to see if we sweep the entire team. He leads off, of course, with the Ghastly. I'm just going to go for the Bone Meringue here as he curses me. Haunter uses Nightshade, and then we miss Bone Meringue, so we're probably losing this one just because of that miss. Then we get Shadow Balled down by the Gengar. Still, I think we can get this one to go if we just don't miss too many times. Our Bone Meringue is 90% accurate here. Now, of course, we would love to have a Mint Berry to avoid Hypnosis from the Gengar, or a Quick Claw to outspeed or something like that. Unfortunately, none of those items are available in this one. However, once we get to the Gengar and it doesn't put us to sleep, we can just one-shot it with Bone Meringue. And at this point, we should be able to just sweep the rest of the team unless we don't get a bunch of misses. And sure enough, we beat Morty after just a couple of attempts. But now with that whole section done, I'm going to go first take on all of the rockets in the rocket hideout, because I think this is the best way to route. And then we're going to make our way to Jasmine after that. Then we're going to just have to see which is easier, Pryce or Chuck. It's going to be kind of questionable on both of them, honestly, but I think with enough setup, we can probably get through Chuck, given the fact that Poliwrath isn't a super fast Pokemon, but we'll just have to see. And after catching the red Gyarados, we can come find Lancey Boy, who's going to lead us into the underground, and we should gain a decent number of levels here, but let's see how many we actually get. And in fact, in the hideout, we get to level 28, which means now we can evolve into Marowak, the true Thick Club user of this generation. And now we might have a really easy time on our hands getting through this next section, since we're quite a bit more powerful than we were before, but let's just see how it goes. Now, of course, we all know from Generation 1 that Marowak is supposed to be a ghost Pokemon. I'm going to have to come back and do a ghost Marowak in this version of the game like I did in Gen 1 previously. That could be really interesting, honestly, since Dark type is actually a thing here. But for now, we're just going to come in and just start headbutting all of these Pokemon with our non-ghosty mama, and let's see if we can manage to just sweep everything at this point. This might honestly just be super easy now. And sure enough, we crushed this entire section with no issues, so we can come into the final executive battle here with our Marowak, where we're just going to use Bone Meringue to destroy the Arbok. Out comes Gloom. I think Bone Meringue is still good enough to get through that Pokemon, and Murkrow can get a headbutt. Sure, it's faster than us, but it had no chance of ever taking us down, and just like that, we have completely destroyed this section of the game. Now, just like in the Light Ball Pikachu run, I'm just going to switch out for my other Pokemon in order to let them get self-destructed on by these electrodes. Let's see if this actually works out though. Sure enough, they blow up on all of my other Pokemon, so I'm able to get through with no experience gained in that section. So we're staying on minimum experience with our Marowak up to this point, which is honestly kind of awesome to see. The Cubone section was actually feeling like it was quite a bit weaker than the Light Ball Pikachu, but maybe now with the Marowak, we're going to actually start completely destroying things. In fact, I'm going to come straight into Pryce's gym just because I really want to see what this will look like with our actual Marowak. Like, will we be able to just completely overpower him in spite of the fact that we have a type disadvantage? Honestly, don't know, but let's get into it and find out. So first things first, I'm going to set up a Swords Dance here on the Seal, and then let's just go for a Bone Meringue. We completely destroy that Pokemon. Dugong's out next. We're faster and we destroy it. And now Piloswine gets more of the same action, so we just win. Oh, Pryce never stood a chance. so I will certainly just take the Pryce disrespect here in spite of the fact that he's supposed to be the 7th gym. Come on, when has anybody ever fought Pryce 7th when they actually knew anything about the game? I mean, your first run, sure, I'll give it to you. You didn't know, you thought he was the 7th gym, you may as well take him on in order, but after that first run, he's basically the equivalent of Gen 1 Bruno in this version. At least that's my personal opinion. But now I'm just gonna try to attempt a kind of efficient routing here by going down and fighting Chuck. Even though I have a type disadvantage against the Poliwrath, it might not matter. We might just be able to completely sweep through this gym. So I'm gonna try to go even without setup. Let's just see what Bonemerang does. It completely destroys the Hitmonlee, and then Hitmonchan should be more of the same. So yeah, we don't even need to set up anymore to just completely destroy Pokemon, at least on these rando trainers. So I'm gonna make my way straight to Chucky Boy and see how he goes. So now Chuck's gonna show us how to throw boulders since he's been taking so many PEDs, but I'm not sure he's gonna be quite as jacked up as our Marowak is. So let's get into this. I'm gonna go ahead and lead off with just Bonemerang here. Let's see the range on Primeape. We one-shot it. Out next comes the Poliwrath. We go Bonemerang. It's not going to be a one-hit KO, but he misses Hypnosis, so Headbutt ends it. We beat Chuck on the first attempt with no damage taken and no Swords Dances necessary. We just completely destroyed him. So now we're gonna come talk to his wife and she's gonna give us a present for beating him up, and we can make our way back to Jasmine. So we're gonna deliver whatever Breaking Bad thing she's been doing here, and let's make our way straight to her gym to confront her, and we're gonna tell her that we have the actual good stuff. Whatever she just got, she's gonna give it to that Steelix, but it's not gonna be enough. But let's just see if we completely stunt on the Steel Gym Trainer now. Jasmine's gonna lead off with her Magnemite, which obviously can do nothing as long as we actually hit. We missed the first Bonemerang, so we take one Sonic Boom there. We destroyed the second Magnemite though. Steelix is out now. I'm going for Bonemerang, and this is a just one turn KO. Technically, Bonemerang hits twice in one turn. You could call it a one-hit KO or a two-hit KO, but it doesn't matter. This fight was never in question. We completely destroyed Jasmine, and we are now through 7 gyms and ready to move on in the game. And I'm starting to feel pretty darn good about this one, especially because we don't have to really deal with any flying types until we get to the Elite Four. I guess Golbat on the Rivals team, but at this point, I don't think he's actually going to be that hard. So we will just quickly pick up Return now in Goldenrod, just so that we have access to that TM if we actually need it later on. But now I'm just going to get into the Radio Tower and let's just gain a ton of levels fighting all of these trainers. So now we're ready to get into the Rival 4 fight. I don't think this one's going to be nearly as bad as the Rival 3 just because we have Marowak, but let's see. Of course, the Rival leads off with his Golbat here. We know that the Meganium's coming up later, so we probably will need to set up some sword stances somewhere, but I'm just going to go all in on attack first. Of course, Meganium does come out, and let's just see the range. And Headbutt does about a quarter here. It did 28 damage, so this will be a 4-hit KO. We don't go down from a critical hit Razor Leaf, but it's actually a speed tie here. Okay, so we're going to need to set up our sword stances on the first Golbat. Let's see how this goes. Now, of course, a major consideration here is the fact that we are very likely to get confused here by the Golbat. It loves to use Confuse Ray, but once we set up all of these sword stances, as long as we don't hit ourselves, we should be fine. If we do hit ourselves, we're probably going to knock ourselves out. Here we make it back to the Meganium though. We move first only to knock ourselves out in confusion. So this is where this one might get to be a little bit tough. We would love to have like a Bitter Berry or something here, but unfortunately that is not an option when we're required to use the Thick Club at all times. So this time we get through without hitting ourselves in confusion on the Golbat. We're back to Meganium. We survive the critical hit Razor Leaf and then one-shot that Pokemon. Out next comes Sneasel, and it is faster and hits Feint Attack, and on such low health there was nothing we could do. So I'm pretty sure we need the Meganium to use a non-damaging move against us and allow us to knock it out that way. So this one actually is looking fairly random. This time we get Reflect from Meganium, but with 3 Swords Dances set up, we still knock that Pokemon out, meaning we go to Sneasel with much better HP. Feint Attack will not do enough. We simply knock it out with a Bone Club. Haunter, we're going to give it more of the same action We actually miss and take a curse and then get hit by Shadow Ball. And then finally there's a Magnemite and we miss the Bone Club. Otherwise we would have won. I don't know, Headbutt might just one-shot here though. So I probably should have been using the perfectly accurate move, but that was basically bad luck at that point. It's clear that we can win this fight. It's just not super consistent. Next attempt, we're back to the Magnemite and we simply knock it out. So once you know the ranges and you don't get a bunch of turns of hitting yourself in confusion, you really just need to win one speed flip against the Meganium and you're good to go. Still, that is not a super easy fight by any means, so that makes me wonder if Rival 5 is actually going to be tough in this one. And honestly, nothing else in this entire section really poses any major issue for us, so we can quickly get to the executives here at the top of the radio tower, and I think we're just going to crush them with our Bone Meringue. Let's see. So the final executive leads off with his Houndour. I'm just going to go for the Bone Club. We actually missed the first one, but hit the second one. Coughing is out next. It gets completely destroyed. And finally, that leaves us with a Houndoom. We're just going to go for the Bone Meringue. It hit Ember, but that didn't do nearly enough, and we knock him out easily on the first attempt. The entire radio tower is now done, and we can go to the final gym, Claire. And this one's going to be kind of interesting because, of course, our ground type moves are going to be neutrally effective here, but we're also dealing with the fact that basically all these dragon Pokemon have strong moves. I think there's one Dragonair that's using like Thunderbolt and isn't really that scary, but the rest of them are using things like Ice Beam and Surf and I think Bubble Beam. So this could actually prove to be kind of difficult in Blackthorn. We'll just have to see if we can sweep or not. We might have to set up on the Dragonair that has the electric type moves. Now I have reset the overlay to not have any optional battles on it because I actually cut this off once yesterday to take care of my little boy and realized I had lost all of my progress so far. So I had to replay to this point today in order to continue the run. Still, we are to this point in the game on minimum battles, and after a fairly inconsistent section at the start of the game with only Cubone, since we've gotten to Marowak, really only the Rival 4 fight has looked kind of random or like we weren't perfectly winning it every time. So that gives me a lot of confidence that we are going to be able to complete this challenge pretty easily, but who knows, maybe minimum battles proves to be impossible somewhere further on. We'll just have to test it and find out. So now it's just time to try Claire and see if we can beat her on minimum battles. The first attempt I'm going to go all in on attack, then we'll look at maybe doing some setup. So in this first attempt, let's just see the range with Bone Meringue. It completely destroys the first Dragonair. So if we hit all these Bone Meringues, we should easily win here. She sends out Kingdra here, however, and Kingdra is faster than us. So it hits a smoke screen, but we hit the Bone Meringue and just destroy it with a critical hit. But I think with one hit from Bone Meringue crits and KOs it, that means if both hit, which they always will as long as one hits, we would get the KO there, and we just destroy the last Dragonair. So just like that, we completely destroy Claire on the first attempt. It was never even in question. She only hit us with a smoke screen, which didn't do anything in the end. So we get to move on in the game. So here these old guys are going to tell Claire that she completely screwed up and she has to give us a badge. They're going to say, don't worry, Lance is a flying type trainer, so he's totally going to crush this Marowak, but we'll just have to see. Claire and the entire dragon line here might just end up getting completely stunted on in the end. But for now, it's time to make our way to the Elite Four. Let's see if we can actually get this to go on minimum battles. If we can, we're also going to be moving on to Kanto in this one. Now here I had to take a couple resets because of this trainer right here. This has to be the dumbest positioning of a trainer in the entire game in my personal opinion, because it is a set spinner. She just turns all around, over and over and over again. So it's just completely luck based to dodge her. Usually with these spinners, you can see them in the overworld and time them up and dodge them, but here when you come out of the cave, you simply can't do anything to get past her. So it's really luck based. You just have to hope then once you get past her initially that you can still dodge her after that. Easily my least favorite thing about Pokemon Crystal as a minimum battles solo runner. They literally are trying to ruin minimum battles here when you've already made it nearly to the end of the entire Johto section. But now as we make our way into the victory road, we are going to pick up the arguably most important TM for our Pokemon here, which is Earthquake. That will give us a far more accurate ground type move to use against our opponents, and it might be the solution in a key spot, but I'm going to avoid learning it right now. I'm actually just going to stick with my moveset as is as we get into the Rival 5 fight. So first up, he leads off with a Sneasel, which fortunately doesn't know any ice type moves, so I'm going to take this opportunity to set up my Swords Dances right here. Even after he starts setting up Fury Cutter, it doesn't do nearly enough and we knock him out. Meganium is out next, we headbutt it, and that is a one-hit KO. Out next comes Golbat, which is a little bit faster than us and it does confuse us, but we one-shot it with a headbutt. Kadabra comes out, it goes Future Sight, we hit ourselves in confusion. That's terrible, that's not what we wanted to see. I'm pretty sure we can't dodge Future Sight now. We do knock out Haunter, however. We could learn Thrash at this level, but I'm going to skip that move. I think Headbutt is better. Thrash has higher damage, but it causes you to become confused, which I don't think is good for us. Here we get hit by Future Sight, we do survive, and then Bone Meringue completely destroys the Magneton, so we beat the rival on the first attempt. Game Freak could not stop this Pokemon from getting to the league on minimum battles. As much as they tried to mess with us with trainer placement and the rivals team being really good against us, we still managed to get here. Now it's time to get into the league and try to fight against Willy Boy. Let's see if we can manage to beat him. He does have a couple of flying types on the team. He does like to use confusion strats, so this could be tough. I'm just going to get all the full restores right here, and let's get into this and see if it actually works. So will attempt number 1. I'm going to lead off with his Swords Dance here. He goes Psychic, which did really good damage. Now he confuses me, but I'm just going to see what the range is here with our Headbutt. Headbutt does one-shot after a single Swords Dance, but then Jinx destroys us with an Ice Punch, so we lose the first attempt. Let's go back in here and see how the ranges look if we just go all in on attack. It turns out that it's a 2-hit KO on Xatu without a Swords Dance setup, and we get destroyed on that attempt. So this makes me think that now is probably the time to think about an upgraded move. Our friendship is getting nice and high, so I think this is the time to slap on Return. I want to see if Return is strong enough to just get a one-hit KO without any setup on the Xatu here. If it is, I think this is our golden ticket to get through. Sure enough, we do get the one-hit KO. Jinx comes out next, it hits the Ice Punch, and unfortunately Ice Punch with its high special attack is still too strong and simply destroys us. So we might need to get a better range on the first Pokemon. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to test this just a little bit to see. So this time we're going to get to Jinx on full health. She hits Double Slap this time rather than going for Ice Punch, so we knock her out nice and easy. Exeggutor comes out, and Exeggutor does not know any damage dealing grass moves, so I'm gonna go for Return here, but it might be a spot to set up a Swords Dance later on. We get Leech Seeded, but I think that's perfectly fine. Slowbro comes out, yet again does not know any damage dealing water moves, and a critical hit Return just destroys it. That brings us to the final Xatu. It hits Confuse Ray, but we hit Return, and that is the end of it. No setup necessary on Will. Once you get Return, you simply sweep through the entire team. That Thick Club is definitely putting in some work here. Now we've got Koga. I think Koga is going to be perfectly fine. I don't think we're going to really be too scared of anything here, especially if we set up a Swords Dance or two. We should just sweep the entire team, but let's see. So Koga leads off with Ariados, which is not a scary Pokemon by any means. Like, yes, it can go Giga Drain, but we're not worried about that. The bigger issue is just being able to hit after he sets up the double teams, but we knock it out with a single Bone Meringue after we actually manage to hit. Venomoth goes down nice and easy. Fortress comes out and gets completely destroyed. Crobat, we're going to go for Return after he goes for the double team. We do hit, so that Pokemon goes down nice and easy. And finally, the Muck takes a Bone Meringue and simply goes down. Koga was never a challenge for our thick Club Marowak. That means it is Bruno time. Let's see how this one goes. First up against Bruno, he's got the Hitmontop. I'm just going to use this chance to set up a couple Swords Dances as he goes dig. We don't really care. Return will destroy that Pokemon afterwards. Hitmonchan also gets a return and gets completely destroyed. Hitmonlee comes out. It hits a high jump kick, but then we hit return and knock it out. Machamp, we hit a single return and it goes down. That brings out the final Pokemon Onix. We can just hit a Bone Meringue and we have beaten 3 Elite Four members on minimum battles. No need for rare candies or anything at this point. We are just cruising. So now Karen, she's got the Umbreon, which we're gonna hate because it's going to definitely use Sand Attack on us. But if we set up all the Swords Dances, it's really just gonna be a matter of whether we land the hits or not. So let's get into this and find out. First things first, I want to see if we just go all in on attack how this goes. Bone Meringue does not manage to KO the Umbreon, but then it goes Feint Attack, so we can just use Return to knock it out the next turn. Out comes the Vileplume. I'm just going to stick with Return here. It is not a one-hitter, it's a two-hitter without any setup from Swords Dance. Murkrow comes out next. It hits the Feint Attack. We hit Return. That Pokemon easily goes down. Houndoom is out. It hits the Flamethrower. We hit the Bone Club to knock it out, but we're on low health going to the final Gengar. Its only damage dealing move is Lick though, so it goes Curse. We hit Bone Meringue, and while it wasn't pretty, we managed to beat Karen on the first attempt, even after we didn't set up any Swords Dances there, just using the Thick Club. I mean, you have to think about the Thick Club doubling your attack stat effectively. The Thick Club is like already having effectively one Swords Dance set up at the start of the battle, which really is a massive benefit. But we might have reached a point right here as we come into Lance where this is all going to break down. He's going to lead off with his Gyarados. If we don't outspeed that Pokemon, and I don't think we do, we might just be getting one-shot here. Or even if we don't get one-shot, there might just be enough speed on the team to guarantee that he gets the win anyway. So I want to see what the speed of that Pokemon is. Remember, we're on max DVs here. This is the best possible Marowak. So if we are not faster here, we might have to think about rare candies. There's only one way to find out though, so let's try Lancey Boy attempt number 1, and we are in a speed tie with the Gyarados. It hits Surf and does massive damage, but then we hit Return and it's going to take 2 returns to knock that Pokemon out. Next is the Dragonite. It hits Blizzard and we are slower than this Pokemon. No matter what we do, we would simply be in a position to get hit there, but this actually makes me not as nervous now that I know we're in a speed tie with Gyarados. We could get a critical hit here in one shot, or we can set up a Swords Dance here. It goes Rain Dance, and man, if it didn't hit first turn 2 after the Rain Dance, we would be in really good shape here. Blizzard, of course, has a much higher 30% chance to miss in Gen 2, so that's also a potential way that we could get through this Dragonite. So I'm just saying, there is a way that we could get through at least the first 2 Pokemon on full health. I think we're resetting for a Rain Dance from the Gyarados and to outspeed on turn 2. So this time we do get to the Dragonite on full health. It misses Blizzard, so we knock it out with a single return. Next, we've got Dragonite number 2, which does not know the move Blizzard. It knows Twister and Hyper Beam as far as moves that can hit us. So here I think I'm going to set up another Swords Dance, and then, oops, I went for Bone Meringue. That was a clear mistake on my part, but now I do manage to hit Return and one-shot that Pokemon. Aerodactyl is the Pokemon I'm most worried about because it resists Return, but we get a critical hit to one-shot there. Charizard comes out. Flamethrower is going to do massive damage. We do manage to knock it out though. So we have made it to the final Pokemon in Dragonite, but Outrage is 100% accurate and is going to destroy us here. We needed to get through with more HP than that to the final Pokemon. So this might be it. This might be the spot where we simply can't progress anymore, but I did make a mistake there by using Bone Meringue on one turn by mistake. So I want to see how I would do if I didn't make that mistake in this run. We get the luck again to get through the first 2 Pokemon. So we're to the second Dragonite. I'm just going to go all in on attack here. We knock it out. Aerodactyl's out next. It goes Wing Attack. We go Return. We do get the KO with just one Swords Dance setup. Flamethrower still is going to hit us from the Charizard, but we do manage to knock it out. So we've made it to the final Dragonite once again, and Outrage is just too much. So just like that, 2 hours into the run, we have finally found a spot where it's basically impossible to progress on minimum battles. We can also see that this Dragonite is 10 points in speed faster than us, so we would need to use multiple rare candies here in order to outspeed. I want to see if that is possible or not. It's important to note, using rare candies here before Lance is generally a bad play because of the fact that you lose the chance to use the rare candies before Red, which is when you typically really need them. Still, I have used 7 rare candies, basically all the ones that you could normally get in Johto, just because I want to see if I have all the rare candies here and now I'm outspeeding against that Dragonite, do I just sweep this entire battle? Let's get into it and find out. So we will still set up Swords Dance on Gyarados, but now we're guaranteed to outspeed the second turn, so this is less random. We simply knock it out. We're going to be faster than all of these Dragonites now, so we can simply knock them out as well. Aerodactyl is still faster than us. There's nothing we can do about that, but it misses a Hyper Beam and just gets destroyed. Charizard also will outspeed. It's a fairly fast Pokemon. It makes sense, but it gets destroyed as well. That brings us to the final Dragonite, which we are a couple points in speed faster than. We did gain a level in the middle of the battle, allowing us to be 3 points in speed faster. We started only 1 point in speed faster, but the result is the same. We simply one-shot there. So the moral of the story is that if you use rare candies, a thick Club Marowak can actually beat all of Johto on minimum battles. It's not always pretty, but it is possible. And for the most part, most of our resets in this entire run came when we were still a Cubone. I'm pretty sure most of those battles we would have won easily as a Marowak, which is why I reset for the minimum battles there. But we did still find that the rival fights are the inconsistent spots here. The gyms really weren't that bad overall. So personally, I think this is a situation where thick Club Marowak shows that it is a minimum battles champion in Johto at the very least. Now we got to go to Kanto though. Having burned our rare candies, I'm not sure if it's going to get through there. We're just going to have to see. But now with all of Johto done, we're going to start on our journey to fight all of these Kanto gym leaders. And I think there's no place better to start than the trash man himself. Let's just come in and beat up on good old Lieutenant Surge. So Surge attempt number 1, we're going to try out this new Bone Rush move that we got here. We easily destroy the Raichu. Out comes the Electrode. It's going for double team, but it gets destroyed as well. Electabuzz is out next. It goes for a Light Screen. Good strategy against a Marowak, clearly. Second Electrode is still double teaming, but gets destroyed. And finally, we get the Magneton. We miss, and then it goes double team, and then we miss again. But finally, we hit through the double team, and Lieutenant Surge has to admit that he's been grounded. So just like that, we can move on in the game, but we have kind of a problem that I'm looking forward to here. We are going to get the rare candies that are available in Kanto, but I'm not sure they're going to be enough at the end of the game. We might hit a point where we get to Red, and that's basically the end of the run. Like, we can't progress anymore just because we're too under-leveled. Still, that's pretty far in the future. I'm going to come in here to Sabrina's gym since we're a really strong physical attacker. I think we can just one-hit KO all of our Pokemon as long as we hit the return. Let's see. First up, we've got the Espeon. Of course, it's fast, but it misses the Sand Attack and goes down to a single return. We are faster than the Mr. Mime, so it goes down nice and easy. Alakazam's out finally. It hits the Psychic, but we survive and one-shot. So just like that, Sabrina never stood a chance, and we're ready to move on. Now, Erica should theoretically be one of the tougher gym leaders for us in this run, but I'm still going to go try to fight her right now because her Pokemon aren't particularly fast, and I think that gives us a huge advantage here in that we can simply use the fact that we have a really strong move in return to just destroy her Pokemon. And maybe we have to set up a Swords Dance, I'm not sure, but it shouldn't really be too bad, I don't think. We get through all the randos in the gym with no issues at all, just all one-hit KOs even without setup. So now it's just time to try our hand on Erica and see if we get the one-hit KO sweep. She leads off with the Tangela. We go return. It is a one-hitter on that Pokemon. Jump Bluff is out next. It gets completely destroyed. Victory Bell is out. Normally a beast of a Pokemon, but it doesn't stand a chance against us. And Blossom is actually quite slow, so it gets completely crushed as well. We completely destroy Erica's gym in spite of our type disadvantage here, and we can move on in this challenge. As in other runs, I have given my Abra Flash here just so that I can root more efficiently because I'm bad at rooting in the dark, but we did not take any additional battles with our Marowak in order to get it. As usual, you can just use the Gyarados once you catch it, and that Pokemon easily destroys all the sages in the Sprout Tower, just as a workaround to keep us on the minimum amount of experience. But here as I got the expansion card, I just realized I never actually got the radio card in this run, so we're gonna have to backtrack a little bit here. But with the radio card now in hand, I think it's time to make our way to Brocky Boy. He should be by far and away the easiest of these gym leaders, though I don't know, Blaine might be really easy too. We know that Janine is always trash, so I didn't even think of her as a gym leader when considering what is the easiest gym leader. I don't actually expect Misty to be hard by any means. She's just not necessarily going to be easy either. So I'm gonna go Brock, then Blaine, then Janine, then go back to Misty, and then come back to Blue. I think that is the best routing. The overlay is once again showing some optional battles, but don't mind those. I have not taken any actual optional battles here. We're up to 127 resets just because I did a little resetting for routing, but we're ready to make our way into Brock's gym, where the Light Years boy is still standing here waiting years later, and Brock I don't think stands a chance here. So here I'm just going to lead off with Bone Rush and easily knock out that first Pokemon. In fact, we're probably better off just going Bone Meringue since it is more accurate. We could consider, of course, at any point adding on Earthquake to have a more accurate same type move, but for now we're simply making quick work of all of these Pokemon with really no issues. And from there we can surf south to the remains of Cinnabar Island, where Blue is going to run in terror at the sight of our thick Club Marowak. He knows he stands no chance. He's got to go tell Red about us because Red is the only hope that Kanto has. But in the meantime, we will come into Blaine's gym, or I guess his little cave, since he's been hiding from us this whole time. He also knows destruction is coming, but let's see how easy this actually is. So against the Magcargo, I'm going to go Bone Meringue, which easily destroys it. Out next, he sends out Rapidash, which is fast. It hits a Fire Blast, does decent damage, and we get a miss. Oh no, Blaine might actually beat us after all that trash I was talking. We are faster than the Magmar, however, and we destroy it in a single hit, so really no issues. And after a quick heal in Fuchsia City, last time somebody asked me to remind you guys that in fact Fuchsia City does have a Pokemart. It is the one Pokemart that nobody knows exists. And with that whole situation cleared up, we can now come in and face the weakest gym leader in the entire game in my personal estimation. I think she's weaker than Falkner even, at least in terms of the number of Pokemon she's going to wall on minimum battles. So let's just go ahead and stunt on her. She leads off with a Crobat. We return and completely destroy it. Ariados, we'll just stick with the same. It's an easy victory as well. There's really no reason to do anything other than return here since it's just gonna one-shot everything anyway. This is probably the actual optimal strategy in all these fights, except maybe Brock. But now here with that gym completely destroyed, we're gonna go back to fight all the randos that we have to fight before we get to Misty, and then it's going to be on the Blue. But let's just see. Misty might have some tricks up her sleeve with that Starmie. Maybe she actually damages us. Still, we will come and mess up Misty's date with our thick Club Marowak, and it's time to go and take her on in her gym. So Misty attempt number 1, she leads off with Golduck. We just go return and easily destroy it. Out next is the Quagsire, which is way too slow to do anything, so it simply goes down. We get to level 64 as Lapras comes out and gets completely wrecked, and that brings out the Starmie, which is faster than us. It hits Confuse Ray, but we hit return, and that is an easy one-hit KO. So Misty once again poses no issue for us as we progress in the game. So we have progressed all the way to Blue, at least on minimum battles, thanks to the thick club, and of course we've been using a lot of return here. Still, I think the strategy overall is reasonable, and we should be, I think, at least in decent shape against Blue himself, so we're probably going to win here. Let's just see if we can actually get it to work though. So Blue attempt number 1, he leads off with the Pidgeot, of course. He goes wing attack, we go return and get the one hitter there. Gyarados comes out next. It misses a Hydro Pump, but then it survives with 15 HP. It could be a range, it probably isn't, but we're 1 point speed slower than this Pokemon. He goes for the full restore here, and we get the range the next time with a crit to knock that Pokemon out. Out next is the Exeggutor. It's gonna be a 2-hitter, but it's too slow. It goes for Solar Beam, but never had a chance. Alakazam goes for Reflect and barely survives the first return, but goes down in 2 hits. That brings out Rhydon. We will simply go for Bonemerang. We miss and get hit by Earthquake, and Bonemerang is not getting a 1-hit KO here. So we're actually on really low health due to the Reflect there. So Arcanine, faster than us, manages to win. We clearly need at least one Swords Dance here if this is gonna go. So I'm just gonna set up the Swords Dance here on the first Pidgeot since I'm not really scared of anything that it can do. That means that's a 1-hit KO. Gyarados is gonna go for Rain Dance here. That's perfectly fine by me. We just destroy it. Exeggutor, now we can go for the return and destroy that Pokemon as well. Alakazam, we don't even care if it goes for the Reflect. It's just gonna get wrecked. That brings out once again the Arcanine. We're at level 65 with 84 HP. Bonemerang just gets a 1-hit KO there now, and the final Rhydon doesn't stand a chance without Reflect set up. So it was really just because of Reflect that we lost that last one, plus a couple of misses. Blue really isn't that bad. And now with this entire section done, there's only one trainer left to fight in the game. It is Red. We've only got 3 rare candies going into this battle after we pick up the last one en route to Red, so this could be tough. We're going to be at best at level 68 going into that battle. I don't think we're going to outspeed the Charizard no matter what we do. Same for Espeon and Pikachu, but we might be able to outspeed against Venusaur. I'm not sure. Venusaur and of course the Blastoise are the Pokemon that we're most worried about here. If we can manage to outspeed, we're going to be perfectly fine. If we can't manage to outspeed, we're going to get wrecked. But I think my strategy here is going to be to set up all the Swords Dances on the Pikachu since it really can't do that much to us. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be spamming Charm and Quick Attack. So as long as we manage to set up all of these Swords Dances there, we should be in pretty good shape to just sweep all the rest of the Pokemon on his team as long as we hit first or we don't get KO'd by their moves. So this is going to be very interesting. We do also still have Earthquake in the bag as a more accurate ground type move. We will have to consider that if we find ourselves in a tough situation with, for example, Bonemerang missing. I'm honestly not sure how this is going to go, but let's get into it and find out. We're going to try first at our current level and just see if we can manage to win against Red. So Red leads off with Pikachu, of course. I'm going to start setting up Swords Dance as he is going for Charm. After we get all the Swords Dances set up, we can simply go for Return to destroy this Pokemon. Out next is the Venusaur. He goes for the Solar Beam, but obviously we're just going to destroy it with our Return after that. Blastoise is out next. It is faster than us. It hits Surf, and we get completely wrecked given the fact that it's 12 levels higher than us. The problem is I don't think we have any way to outspeed here. We can slam the 3 rare candies just to see what it does for us, but honestly you would be looking for like a Quick Claw here, I think, not the Thick Club. Still, Venusaur wanting to use Solar Beam is really good for us because it gives us just a free win right there, but we can't survive against Blastoise. I'm going to try to see if I can get to Blastoise on higher HP just to see if maybe, just maybe, that affects things at all, because I'm pretty sure one Swords Dance basically has us 1-hit KOing things here. So back to Blastoise on better HP. We just barely survive. So we do knock it out, but now the problem is that Espeon's going to be faster and just use Psychic and knock us out. Pretty sure Charizard is also faster and is just going to 1-hit KO us. So Snorlax is the only Pokemon that we would have an easy KO against here. And that basically is the answer. Thick Club Marowak, while it is really strong, gets to the end of the game here and then simply cannot win on minimum battles. Now, it is possible that a normal Marowak would actually be better here in some ways because of the fact that we could go for something like Curse, but then use a Quick Claw in order to outspeed against our opponents. especially because if we were using something like Curse plus Rest, we might be able to just recover all of our HP at the right spots and then use that in order to win. But here, unfortunately, we're gonna have to level up to get through this. So now that we know that minimum battles isn't possible, we've done this entire run really inefficiently. We've done it in a way where, yes, we've gotten to this point in the game on minimum battles, but we used rare candies before we fought against Lance, so we didn't have as many here, which means we're a little bit under leveled. I'm gonna give myself infinite rare candies and just level up until I can actually at least match the speed of that Blastoise. Keeping in mind, leveling up with rare candies means I'm not getting extra stat experience. We could look at vitamins and optimizations sometime in the future, but for now, I just want to see what happens when we at least have a speed tie against that Blastoise, and what level does it take to get that. So at least leveling up with rare candies, because Marowak is not a super fast Pokemon, it takes level 82 to reach a point where we would be in a speed tie with that Blastoise. Let's see how the battle goes now. So here I'm still going to set up some Swords Dances on the first Pikachu, especially after it charms, but we can easily knock it out after that. Venusaur comes out. We are going to still be slower than this Pokemon, but we do manage to knock it out on the next hit. Now we're in the speed tie with Blastoise. We win the speed tie, and of course Return completely destroys that Pokemon. Espeon comes out next. It's going to be faster no matter what we do, but we simply one-hit KO it. Snorlax is out. We can go for Return, and that is also a one-hit KO, though it goes down very, very slowly. Finally, Charizard is faster, but it can't do enough damage with the Flamethrower, but it takes level 82 to be able to get through that fight, at least with the minimum amount of stat experience available in the game. So we can say something definitively. Thick Club Marowak, while it is an absolute beast in competitive Gen 2, is actually worse in a full game solo challenge than a Light Ball Pikachu, because the Light Ball Pikachu was able to beat the entire game on minimum battles. Now you can also point out that my Light Ball Pikachu had Double Team as a level up move. If we gave Double Team to our Marowak, we would also be able to set that up on the Pikachu and probably get through that way. I'm simply noting that with its level up moves, at least, without throwing on a broken TM like Double Team, you are not getting through this at a low level. You are going to take a bunch of extra battles or a bunch of rare candies like I did at the end. You can probably get it lower than level 82, assuming that you are grinding and actually battling trainers, since you would also be gaining stat experience on top of that, but somewhere in the high 70s at least in order to win this battle at the end of the game. That's kind of mind-blowing, but it turns out that that's what it takes to win with Ghosty Mama. Our Bone Whack manages to get through, but it wasn't as pretty as I expected. Anyway, that does it for this one. We're going to come back in the future to look at the high critical hit chance held items for Farfetch'd and Chansey. If you enjoyed this one, keep supporting my goal to become a full-time PokeTuber by watching another video. And if you really want to dive in more to the content, consider joining the channel membership. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I will see you in the next one. Later.